Water is our nation's fuel. It fuels our economy, it fuels our people. But despite its value, our next guest says Canada and Canadians aren't doing enough to preserve this valuable asset, a role she says Canada should embrace on the world stage. Here she is, Bernadette Conant. She is Executive Director of the Canadian Water Network, and we're happy to have you here at TVO.
Thank you. Pleased to be here, Steve.
Well, let's start with this. The Canadian Water Network is what?
Well, the Canadian Water Network, it's a national organization, and we're in the business of bringing leading research, both nationally and internationally, to practical problems, and more specifically to the people who make the decisions and choices. And that's really where we operate.
And the blue pin is?
The blue pin is our logo, so it's the blue for water, of course, the maple leaf for Canada, and you'll see, I'm not sure if you guys can zoom in, but you can see at the bottom, it has waves at the bottom, so it's our way of talking about water nationally and the waves that run through it.
That's very nice. You don't normally see our maple leaf in blue. It looks good in blue.
That's great. Yeah. Honestly, Steve, when I am traveling and I've gone to Ottawa and I'm passing through the security system or I'm on the airplane, the most frequent question I get is, can we have a pen or what do you do? It's like, where did you get that pin?
Yeah.
And can I have one?
Good.
So it's how you spread the message, I guess.
You say part of your job is problem solving, so tell me a problem that you have helped to solve so far.
Well, it's interesting the problem solving we do, because in your introduction, what I say is that we're not doing enough. My actual view of it is there's more that we can do and lots that we're able to do. So problem solving are things that we're really engaged in. And I don't take credit for problem solving, but really empowering the decision makers to solve a problem. So I'll give you a concrete example. Most recently in Ontario, we've been working with both the Ministry of the Environment, the provincial government, and the people that are managing your water systems to update a guidance document. And what that means is just it tells them how they have to go about doing their job to meet the regulations. And it needed updating to the best science, and so that it was acceptable on both sides. Meets what the regulation wants, keeps us safe, keeps our community safe, and is implementable by those who are doing it. So acceptable to both. So it accelerates their ability to implement important regulation. So implementing regulation as well as informing regulation is a key way that we've produced success. I've got some others, but maybe I'll follow your lead and what you'd like to talk about.
We'll go through it here. Maybe humor me for a second here, and this will maybe help you describe another story of what you guys do. When the toilet is flushed in this building, where does the water go?
Right. So when the toilet is flushed or you pour something down the sink, it's all that design is really to take the water away. So it's a good question. Most people, well, where does it go? All the water in this building and the water in the building beside you, whether it's coming from the toilet or the sink. So basically anything that goes down the drain, it combines in piping under the system, and under your streets it combines to a sewer line. So it's really a common pipe that takes it away and gathers it and moves it to a treatment facility. So in places across Canada, what that treatment looks like could vary. Here it might be down to Ashbridges Bay, and there's a treatment plant. So it basically collects it all and takes it to one spot centrally where the city engineers or the utility owners will basically put a treatment system in place to remove. They
clean it up. They chlorinate it.
Right. So you started with the toilet. So this is one of the reasons we start with the toilet is because it's a great example, because one of the biggest components that's dissolved and suspended in that water is what we put in the toilet when we're putting the only things we're supposed to be sitting on the toilet. And but that mixes with wastewater. So what the treatment plant does, really a large part of what it does, is remove that organic component of the water as well as contaminants, so that when you're releasing the water to the environment, you're really removing most of those organics.
What if we're putting stuff in the toilet that we're not supposed to, like medication, antibiotics, that kind of thing?
Right. So treatment systems around the world were never designed to deal with all the various drugs that we have in our system. They're built really meant to take the organics out and some of the other sort of main contaminants. So the challenge to taking pharmaceuticals, so drugs and also compounds that are in just the cosmetics and things that we use, some of those are a real challenge for the systems. So if there's responsibility really lies with the consumer and the producers as well as the people doing the treatment. So the more we don't put down the toilet, other than the things that should go down the toilet, and things go down, the better off we all are going to be, because really, it's not us and them. It's about what do we want our systems to do and how do we want to treat it. So the more we separate it, kind of like think about how much sense it makes to take the newspapers and the recyclables out of your material and sort them before it gets to the landfill.
Gotcha.
Same kind of idea.
And in the case of Toronto, let's say, Ashbridges Bay, that water treatment facility down on the waterfront, is that in fact the final destination?
For what goes down the sink?
Yes.
Well, it's the final destination for the pieces that are coming out. So
no, nothing's getting into Lake Ontario, because we sometimes hear that when there's a huge storm and the sewers overflow,
right,
that some of that effluent ends up in
right.
Lake Ontario, which is
the,
not good.
Right. The point being that when the sewers overflow and go into a storm fluer, that means it's essentially bypassing that treatment plant.
Right.
But you picked a good example in Toronto, because Toronto's particularly being proactive in that sense. Since I think 2002, they've had a wet weather flow master plan. Try not to use any acronyms, so see if I got that right. But the whole point of that is really a long-term effort to deal with what happens with the circumstance you just described, so that if we can capture those events that will happen when there's a storm, you need escape valves, you need systems where you can deal with overflow. You reduce the amount of those happening, but they're going to happen sometimes. So this big plan that's being put in place in Toronto is actually looking to deal with that and make sure that there is a parallel treatment process that is likely going to be put in place so that water that doesn't make it to that treatment plant does get treated. So there will always be some that, you said what goes through, it'll always be something that goes through. What's in this glass isn't just H2O. There are lots of other dissolved minerals and pieces of the world around us in that glass.
Particulate matter, I think they call it.
Well, even if, sure, but it might be particulate matter means literally, even though we can't see it, it's a small, it's a particle, and then there are things that are actually dissolved in the water. So even if your eyesight was really great, you wouldn't see it. But the point is, we learned in, I think, high school chemistry that water is the universal solvent. Well, that's for a reason. Things belong in water, things get dissolved in water, and things that we don't want in water tend to get into water. And so what treatment plants really work out is taking the vast majority of that out. Doesn't take it all out, but that's really the big question about water management. It's really about a balance. How hard do you want to work on getting that cleaner than what the fish would normally swim in? What's a problem? What's not a problem? Well, those are exactly the kind of questions we deal with here.
The Federation of Canadian Municipalities, you know this group, they represent all the municipalities in the country. They think we need $80 billion to bring our infrastructure up to what it ought to be. Is that possible?
Absolutely. The number's probably larger than that. What they're giving you is a realistic indication of really what it takes to do water management. So people talk about water challenges and a water crisis. What it really is, it's about water management. And if we're going to manage water well, we need to put the systems in place and support and resource the system so that you and I can have the safe water we want in the swimmable.
If we need $80 billion worth of fix-up, that suggests that things are not in good shape right now. So how precarious is it?
It doesn't necessarily suggest they're not in great shape. It indicates that they need to be upgraded and improved. So the same report that you're taking that number from actually had a number of municipalities, I think over 100 across the country, self-report on what they thought the condition of their assets were. In drinking water side, it was mostly good news story. So there's regular operational maintenance. Stormwater, a little bit of both. Wastewater, which you started with the discussion with, that's where I think a little over 30% of the infrastructure needs upgrading, or its life is soon coming to an end. So to me, it's a big number, but it's a very realistic number. And it's a number, those kinds of billions of dollars numbers is something that should be seen not as shock value, but as, this was a great investment.
Okay, if we do need this kind of investment, where do we need it the most? In other words, where's the infrastructure in the worst shape?
Where geographically,
yes.
Or where, so there's no specific map that would say this part of the country is worse off. It's always more of a challenge in the northern parts of the country because we have smaller systems, smaller population, smaller tax base to look after it, and anything that requires flying materials or expertise in remote communities. So small and remote communities in Canada generally.
I guess.
Yes, and small municipalities, but First Nations, Aboriginal, Métis and Inuit communities, but remote communities, they're really our biggest challenge overall in terms of where is that investment needed in that report that you referenced. The biggest chunk of that is probably in the next few years going to go into wastewater upgrades. So we don't want to ignore the drinking water side, but the biggest expenditure of that 80 billion is probably on what we need to upgrade wastewater.
I think it's fair to say that in the life of the province of Ontario, the most tragic and dramatic moment when the importance of water came to our attention was 14 years ago in Walkerton, Ontario,
right,
when more than 2,000 people got sick and 7, I think, died.
That's correct.
As a result of E. coli being in the water system. Now, it wasn't as simple a case as we had bad systems, etc. The guys who were in charge of running the show were not on the job, and anyway, it's a more complicated story than it seems on the surface. My question is, what impact, now that we've had the advantage of 14 years of hindsight to look at it, what impact has that had on our commitment to managing water better in this province?
Well, you picked the one incident in Canada that's probably had the largest watershed change, if you'll let me use the term, than anything. So 2000, May of 2000, when that tragedy happened, and as you said, 7 people died, and not to forget that thousands more were sick, and some still live with disabilities today, really was a wake-up call in terms of this is what can happen if water management isn't done well. So I think a lot of people would tell you that that tragedy has actually been turned into an opportunity to say, how can we manage better? And as I said, it's a water management issue. So that single event spurred more regulatory change, not just in Ontario, but across Canada, in terms of the way that we protect our water resources, that we protect our drinking water supplies.
For the better?
Absolutely.
Regulatory
for the better.
change for the better.
Right.
Unambiguously so.
Unambiguously so. Yeah, let me make a distinction, because I think I know where you might be going with that, and that is, unambiguously, it's a change for the better in terms of being more vigilant, looking where things can fail, and looking at how do we get that to work. Whenever you have a big change like that, and it's not just water, in any regulation, it's the goals that you hammer out and that you agree on, and who's going to argue with, we want good systems in place for safe water. What you'll see today in Ontario and other places is really the struggling through how much regulation is too much, or if our goal is to have this regulation go in place to make sure that our water is swimmable and fishable, and our kids are safe and they can drink water. You know, how much is too much and how little is too little. So it's always about finding a balance. You can't have too much.
I think I've got an answer to that.
Great.
Well, I don't have the answer, but
Excellent. I know some people who would.
I think the
like
PC member, Lisa Thompson, had an answer. You saw this news conference not too long ago where she came out and she said, and Walkerton's in her writing, and she said, obviously some good has come out of the changes that are made as a result of Walkerton, but she obviously hears from constituents, farmers, who believe that too much regulation has been put in place, and she thought some of them were excessive. What do you think?
I don't know that the point is whether it's an excessive regulation. I think most of what the complaints, and if you listen to the rest of that interview, was really about red tape. And that's not about whether the regulation's in place, that's really about how that regulation is implemented. How much reporting has to go into it? How many times do I have to look at something? If we all agree that what we want to do is make sure for farmers that we keep cow waste out of the water, what is the best way to get that done? And so that is really what I would say is that it's the right discussion to be having, is we all agree that that's what we want. And if somebody feels that they're spending time or resources in a way that's not getting to that end goal, that's an absolutely valid discussion. So I think that's where you see in Ontario right now with the source water protection legislation, that form of the idea of how do we keep the waters around our groundwater wells, like the Walkerton case, or our surface water bodies clean. That's really been put in place because of Walkerton, and now what you really see is the getting down to it of how do you get that done. So if I had to say there's a recipe for what you have to do to get good regulation and action, you first have to recognize that it's finding the right balance. You need enough protection. Overprotection isn't a good thing. What's the right balance between what the regulations have to do? You've got to stay the course, and this is a big one for water. Instead of just proclaiming it and putting out a regulation, really grinding through all the stuff that comes afterwards about how does that get into a good place. And then when you're looking at it, you really have to focus that the resources are going where the priorities are. So I think she's really challenging in those steps. You know, have we got the balance right? And I think that's a pretty good discussion.
Okay. Here's John Beddington. The Blue Economy Initiative, Canada as the Water Solutions Country Report. This is of May of last year, looking at Canada as a potential water steward in the world. John Beddington, former chief scientific advisor to the British government, warns that by the year 2030, the world will need to produce around 50% more food and energy, together with 30% more fresh water, whilst mitigating and adapting to climate change. This threatens a perfect storm of global events. Any idea how Canada will fare during this perfect storm?
Well, it's a great statement in terms of what the challenges are and really kind of riveting people's attention on what the needs are. This is, you asked earlier about the opportunity piece where Canada really can shine. So we focus a lot on what we need to do at home, complete priority about managing our water well. But the idea of the global changes in the world, the first one actually is population growth. So people like to focus on climate change. It really adds to the problem. It puts a lot more uncertainty into when water arrives or where it moves around. But it's really the growth of the population of the planet, and the fact that a lot of the population is increasing its economic status, which is a good thing, but it also means they're eating more meat, they're using more water. So Canada, to your question, has a great opportunity both to supply the kinds of goods and services at home. So thinking about feeding the world. We've got a lot of water. If stewarded well, we can be one of the chief suppliers of food to a growing world, as well as exporting the technology and services expertise about how to manage water well. So you can see by that statement, knowing how to manage water well is only going to be something that is increasingly in demand globally. So Canada's got a great role to play if it chooses to step up and do that to really help fill that void.
I hate to bring everything down to dollars and cents, but water is a commodity maybe unlike any other, but it's still a commodity. And we have a chart here pointing out the economic value of water to Canada. Municipally speaking, we're talking almost $1 billion there, $985 million. In irrigation, that's $2.7+ billion. In manufacturing, almost $2.5 billion. In hydroelectricity, $11.8 billion. This looks hugely impactful as it relates to our economy. How so?
Well, for me, I'm really glad to see you think those numbers are big, because I expect they're much bigger. Because the numbers that you actually picked are from the report by Renzetti, DuPont, and Wood. And what they did at our request for the Blue Economy Initiative was take a really rigorous look at what you could say the impacts of water were to those sectors of the economy where there's data and where there's a reason to price it or to look at its dollars value, if you like. And the reality is there's a lot of issues like what happens to the environment around it, whether you're keeping a wetland, lots of pieces that actually don't go into the market equation. So those numbers are huge that you're showing, but the reality, if you read that report, is the real number. So we're telling you what we can stand behind.
So this is what you can measure, but in fact, it's much more.
I expect it's quite a lot larger.
And yet, shall we bring up this poll here? This is the RBC Canadian Water Attitude Study from last year. You've seen these numbers. The most important issues facing Canada today, when they did this poll, excuse me, a year ago, healthcare always comes out number one. That's almost half the people. The economy, named by 45% of the people. Unemployment by 26%. Crime and public safety by 15%. And there's water, down identified by only 4% as one of the most important issues facing Canadians. We don't seem to appreciate how valuable and important fresh water is to our very survival. Why not?
Well, I think what the numbers show is the lack of the link, not the lack of caring. So what I would say to you is the first two pieces on that chart, healthcare and the economy, absolutely water issues. So it's not that Canadians don't care. They care about things for which water is fundamental.
They don't see the connection?
They don't necessarily see the connection. So I think when they ask that question, if you respond to that question, what are you feeling? What are you feeling as an issue that needs looking after, that we have to worry about? So Canadians generally feel, well, we're in pretty good shape compared to the rest of the world in terms of our water supply. They're not feeling that it's in danger, but I am worried about healthcare and the economy. So the Blue Economy Initiative that put that forward, we're one of the partners in with Royal Bank of Canada and the Gordon Foundation. And the goal of that program really was to build a case for water sustainability. It's really to build the business case. And really that's just one angle of linking the dots, so bring it down to dollars and cents, is actually showing that the health of that economy is due to water. For healthcare, people care about that. I often will say, in your community, probably the most important health workers and providers in your community are the people that look after your water supply. So it really is about an issue that is top of mind. So part of it is where the questions are asked, but the fundamental challenge, to go back to your initial question about how do we get water management to be done well, how do we get the resources, these are big numbers, billions of dollars. As soon as we have bees, they're big numbers. Is that difference, knowing what's important, but not necessarily seeing the link between the water and its good management and being successul. You can't run a business of any kind of industry sector in Canada without water.
Sure.
There's no substitute.
And yet, do you think we as Canadians, we as consumers, understand what goes into turning on the tap and having fresh, potable, drinkable water coming out of that tap?
No, I think you've hit it right on the head. It's the lack of that connection, not the lack of being worried about it or caring, but the lack of that connection that's the challenge. So the challenge, the opportunity for us, we can communicate it a little bit today, and we do that all over our activities, but it's really connecting the fact that if you want a good economy, if you want a good health care, this is what needs to happen. You started by asking me what happens when the water goes down the drain and goes down the toilet. Well, most of water issues are out of sight, out of mind. And it's not until we have a storm like we did last July in Toronto, or the huge floods in Calgary last June, or we have a drought. So don't forget, it's a year of floods, so we forgot it. That's right, it goes both ways. It's still when the water's not there, or we have a terrible tragedy like Walkerton, that suddenly the value of it comes to us face to face. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't think there's necessarily that connection.
In that survey we just showed the numbers from, the Canadian Water Attitude Study, 54% of Canadians surveyed said they, quote, try reasonably hard to conserve water. Do you believe that?
Yes, I do. I think what the numbers don't show, and I don't have good new numbers for you today, is that we, in Canada, have come a fair ways over the last few years. So the numbers that people tend to put for Canadians' water use typically are from the late 1990s, maybe the early 2000s. So a decade of having something as obscure or as low priority, if you like, as lawn watering bans. Well, that might not be unimportant to you. But this continual messaging really has started to get through to Canadians, and they've started that conservation.
I'm challenging you right now on this. I'm challenging. We're the second biggest water pigs in the world, just behind the Americans, right? We are the second highest per capita water users in the world.
That's right.
And I suspect we are because we think it's, we've got these great lakes and we think it's fabulously plentiful, and we don't have to conserve it or worry about it.
Right, so there's why do I need to conserve? So that is one of the challenges, is people feeling that you need to conserve. If you talk to somebody in the droughts in California right now, they'll understand why. If you talk to somebody from Australia or Israel, conservation there is top of mind for the direct reason of they haven't got a lot of water. Right. It's hard to convince somebody that it's really important to conserve when there's flooding going on around you. So it's a challenge to make that messaging, but it's not just about how much water is there. So that's a key message to leave with Canadians. Really, it's how much energy, how many chemicals, how many people, how much investment goes to producing what goes in this glass. So when you water your lawn, you're using water that's been purified sufficiently for you to drink it, to flush the toilet, to fight our fires, to water our lawns. So it's really understanding that conservation is really about energy. Water conservation is about energy conservation. It's about being more efficient in our costs as much as it is in terms of water scarcity.
It's not an exaggeration to say it's kind of part of our identity in Canada, isn't it?
Absolutely. I've said that often, that if you're trying to grab hold of a really complex topic, and water is very complicated, climate change, the green movement, I think those have been a challenge because it just feels really hard to get your hands around, and can we do all the things that we need to do? And I've often offered that I think water and sustainable water management is a good entry point, because Canadians, I grew up in Canada. Canadians, it's a bit like hockey. Hockey and water are both things we just feel we should be good at.
Funny how we play hockey on frozen water, so they come together.
They come together. So it's something we should be good at, and we should go for the gold, as I've often said, for water management. So if the people that do both the regulations and the management of our water are our hockey team, don't you think they should be getting the gold? I do.
Amen
and
to that.
I think most Canadians do. So basically that's what we try to do in Canadian Water Network, is say, well, if the country wants that and we want that, then we need a team that's going to, a consultant and an informed curator is how we operate, that's going to bring all the various pieces of the puzzle together and think about what do each member of the team need, what do they do best, and when we combine them around a shared goal, and that shared goal being a gold medal, being stewards of water that people look to, there's a lot that can be done. And so that's where we focus, is how do we get that team to work?
You know what? They're going to take away our gold medal here if we don't get out of here, because time's up. Bernadette Conant, the Executive Director of the Canadian Water Network, it's good of you to spend some time with us at TVO tonight.
Great to have this conversation, Steve. Thanks.
Thank you.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.